we're going to go back to the announcements of our upcoming services. If you're joining us and you haven't been here, we're in the middle of a special program that we've been doing for the past 2 years in the summer. We call it our Summer Up program, and our Summer Up is designed to go through a book this summer, and we're going through a book by Reverend Tom Owen-Towle called Homestretch. And we are in the 3rd week of 4, 8, 6, chapter 6 and 7 is what we're going to go over today. And then next week we have recent Starr King graduate Isaac Castro. He's a member of the church down in San Diego. He will be with us in person next Sunday at the fellowship. And then coming back on 8/20, we will finish out our Summer Up series while everyone's on vacation. And I, again, will lead us in the final 2 chapters of Reverend Tom's book, chapters 8 and chapters 9. And I also want to remind everybody, if you're available, every Monday, our very own Paul Bogdan leads Zoom at noon. It's an opportunity for us to connect and to fellowship. Everybody checks in and checks on one another. So if you haven't made it, or if you're available tomorrow, I invite you to join us at Zoom at noon with Paul. One of the most important things we do here is we take care of one another. We give donations of our time, talent, and treasure. And this is the time in the service where we take up the offering of the treasure. And so as the basket is passed in the fellowship and Carol plays some music for us while the basket goes around, a slide is coming up on your screen that gives several ways to give. You can give online through PayPal or Tidely. You can also give by sending a check through the US Post. Do not send cash. And so now, as we pass the basket in the fellowship, Carol, take it away. And now for those in the building, I invite you to stand and make a circle if possible. And we are going to sing our song of thanksgiving, From You I Receive, to You I Give. And we're going to sing that through twice.
To you, together, and from this we lay.
Now I am going to invite you to find a comfortable position. Get your feet centered on the floor, your spine erect. And we're going to move into a space of meditation, contemplation, and prayer, whichever is your practice. And as we go into this space, I'm going to invite you to take a few deep breaths together. It's like an ocean of air that encompasses the entire planet. And as we breathe together, in and out. Another deep breath in and out. just like all of the humans on the planet, all of our air is connected. So let's breathe in peace, breathe out forgiveness, and let's continue to breathe together for a few moments. And then we'll move into a discussion on Reverend Tom's book, Homestretch. Breathe in, breathe out, continue in and out. So we're back with Homestretch, the art of finishing life well. And this week, we're in chapters 6 and chapter 7. And just as a recap for those who aren't familiar, Reverend Tom was born in 1941. He's currently 81 years old. And when he wrote this particular book, he was just retiring from 54 years as an ordained, settled minister. He led the church down in San Diego. Reverend Tom's the author of 24 books on personal growth, social compassion, and spiritual development. And so we're in chapter 6 and 7. Chapter 6, service, paying our full rent. And so in chapter 6, Reverend Tom focuses on the different parts of our journey. In the home stretch, he says it's a comparison between service and savoring. Service and savoring. Their critical quest to a fulfilling portfolio. And he lists a couple ways that the compassionate citizen can find fulfillment. Tutoring in schools, being an attentive grandparent, becoming a hospice volunteer, actually running for political office, mentoring young professionals, even applying for international programs such as the Peace Corps. And he goes on to highlight that service is such a critical component. And he says, service is heart-to-heart resuscitation and can be done anywhere and anytime. And he points out for us some interesting things that Ram Dass, I don't know if you know the spiritual teacher Ram Dass, but he started the Siva Foundation, and it espouses 3 essential criteria in the holy work of the foundation. The first criteria is to do something to reduce suffering in the world. The second, grow in the process. And the third is have fun doing it. And so Reverend Tom is encouraging us to not get caught in what Erik Erikson calls in the 6th stage of human development, that stage of stagnation versus generativity. He's strongly encouraging us not to stagnate, not to get stagnant. So my first question that I'd like to open up and see if we can get a discussion going, and Pam is back. Welcome back, Pam and Dar from vacation. So our technology should allow us to get some feedback from the sanctuary. So my first question is this: how do you strike a balance in your journey? How do you strike a balance in savoring life and in serving? Does anyone in the sanctuary have something on in their journey, how they strike that balance between savoring and serving? Pam's going to bring the iPad around. Actually, she's going up to unmute the laptop for us.
Okay, great. So Dawn, we should be set now that you can hear us from the sanctuary. And what I want to do is invite, if you can, those of you who are here in the sanctuary so that we can have a back and forth. If you come forward, then you'll be able to hear better and you'll be able to speak and be heard. So those of you who are way in the back, I invite you to come forward to be part of the discussion.
And while they're getting themselves resettled in the sanctuary, I'll jump to our participants on Zoom and ask the same question to the Zoom participants. How do you strike a balance between savoring life and serving in life? Anyone on Zoom have a response to that query? I see you, Carolyn. You're muted, you're muted.
My service actually is to my son and their two puppy dogs. As you know, or most of you know, my daughter-in-law has cancer, and they oftentimes have to go to Palo Alto, to Stanford Hospital for treatment, and they can't take the dogs with them. So I am their dog sitter. When they go on vacation, I am their dog sitter. So I really thought when I came here that I could volunteer at the local library, but I can't have anything that would interrupt my dog sitting. So that's what I give. Thank you.
And how do you savor life? What do you do to savor life?
You know, I savor life every day I'm alive. And I know it's not going to last forever, but I just enjoy living. Everything that I it's just part of me. I just enjoy life. It's no one particular thing. I just I enjoy the group that I belong to here in my 55 plus community, and of course I enjoy my children. So yeah, it's a good life.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. Back to the sanctuary. Does somebody in the sanctuary have something they can share with us about how they either savor and or serve in their journey?
Hi, my name is Linda Frost. I wanted to talk about, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Good. I wanted to talk about first Kathy Perry, the opening musical that you showed us. My sister recently sent me a card, and on it there was this picture of a sparkler, and it says, "You are beautiful, brilliant, and a bit of a fire hazard." I liked it a lot. So I thought of that while Kathy Perry was singing our opening hymns this morning. Anyway, I give service, try to, my Parkinson gets in the way, but my service primarily is just to serve my husband and to be at home in Laguna Woods, which where we moved to. And I savor life now. I did not for a long time when I first was diagnosed with Parkinson's, because I thought it was the end of everything as I knew it. It has been, but it's also been a great opportunity to learn about myself and others around me. Thank you very much, Dawn, for doing this.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Linda. Anybody else in the sanctuary have a thought or a comment to share? Go ahead, Harry.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I don't often think of it in this context, but I have a weekly radio show I record at home. It's a DJ show, so I play songs for people. And I've been doing it about 12 years, so I have lots of songs I've collected. I'm always finding new ones. And each of them, often they have a message. And I try and share that message with the people. And that's the service side. I mean, for example, Sinead O'Connor died a week ago. And I found her one of the most intense singers I'd ever heard. So I played one of the songs by her and commented on her impact on me. So that's kind of the service, is I share the music I love, and I also try and state whatever truth it has for me. That's the service. But the joy is I love these songs. So every week I spend an hour or two selecting and then listening to my favorite songs, country music, pop music, anything. But it's my way of sharing joy, and I always tell the audience, I hope these songs, I hope some of them reach out and grab some of you the way they do me. So that's what I do to share and to enjoy.
Wow.
I want to get on
Well,
your. I know.
thank you so much for that share, Harry. And you got to get us a link so that we can hop into that radio show and participate. And I see Candy is moving. So,
Slowly but surely.
so Candy, what do you have for us?
I wanted to kind of repeat what Carolyn said. I guess I feel like I've been a saver of life ever since I've been born in certain ways. And I love, this has been difficult for me being a bit handicapped because I'm used to caring for other people. So that is always a joy. Joining this community, I initially did that to also serve, and I like it. Really, there's a big joy in helping to feed the folks out at the ASL, the alternative sleeping location in the canyon. I've been doing that for many, many years, since they used to be at the beach till now they're at the ASL. That has a great emotional reward for me. Preparing one of the dishes to donate every month, and I hope to get back to that extremely soon. It feels really good to be back in the sanctuary. I feel connected to the people who come here, and I also serve with music. My profession is booking live entertainment, and that feels really good to present bands and musicians that I find appealing to many other people. That's been serving me for several years as far as my career goes, and I'm still doing that. So I'm hoping to get back in the human race here and serve a little more.
You look very, very much back. Very much back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And now I'll pop the question back to the people on Zoom. Is there anybody else on Zoom that can share how they savor and serve? Oh, welcome back, Dr. Ross. We missed you.
Well,
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Jean. Go ahead, Jean.
Oh, I savor life every day. My health is not as good as I wish it were, and I would really love to come to fellowship if I can get someone to start bringing me. But I do enjoy and savor every day. I'm a reader, so I read a lot and do a lot of other things. But anyway, I'm just lucky to be alive.
Well, thank you, Jean. We're coming to you, Dr. Ross.
To get unmuted. Thanks so much. It's wonderful to be back. During my 3 months in San Francisco, I attended the San Mateo UU Church, and they were so welcoming and loving, and it was just wonderful. I often call myself, when I am away from home church, that I'm sort of a UU pilgrim. Wherever I go, I always go to the UU church, and wherever I am, and they're always so different.
Tell them about the choir.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going.
Okay.
So even though it was summer and I hadn't sung in a choir for almost 20 years, I got to sing with them in their choir. They needed a tenor voice, they needed a man, and so I sang with them, and they just welcomed me with open arms. And I just want to say that music is very important to me. Many of you know that I can whistle, but I don't play any instruments, but I can sing. And it was just wonderful being that combination of being open and alive to the music and yet disciplined and having to do it a certain sort of way. And that just was a creative outlet that's been missing from me, for me personally. And I just really enjoyed that, really loved it. So arts are part of the way that and creativity, creative things. Many of you know that Annie and I have been doing jewelry, and this is just one of the rings that I made for Annie, and I'll just put that up there on the screen so people can see.
Yeah, I like small and petite.
Yeah, this is a copper ring, and
No, it's bronze.
or bronze. I'm sorry, this is bronze, not copper. Anyway, it's just, you know, the kind of artistic endeavors, singing and music and photography and all those things. It's the artistic thing that both is a gift, because this one was for Annie, and also savoring the joy of doing something and doing it pretty well. At least I didn't ruin the stuff we sang, and I didn't ruin the ring. So that's just part of it. And last thing, I will also say that, as many of you know, going up into camp, our camp, Divinity Pines, and being in nature is wonderful. Wednesday, Annie and I are going to go up for the adult summer camp. And my friend, Reverend Tom, is going to be there doing his workshops and stuff, as he always does. I'll be able to sing with him, and he plays his guitar on the porch of the lodge. And I just can't wait to get back to there. That's both healing and savoring, to go into nature and to be with good, deep friends. And that, I'll shut up.
And he won't say it, but I will. He's been working up in a methadone clinic, and he serves those people so well. He gives so much of himself to other people. His goal in life is to help people. And it doesn't matter if you're a homeless person on the street or a senator. If you need help, he's there to give it. And it's one of the things I most love about him.
Well, thank you both. Thank you both. Anybody else on Zoom have a thought on savoring and serving? Noreen.
I will say something.
Oh,
before we come to Noreen, we're coming to you. Give me a second, I will get there. Go ahead, Marcia.
It's very nice to see some folks I haven't seen for a lot of years. Jean Paris, lovely to see you, and Carolyn and Oakley. Been a long time. I live in Laguna Woods, and one way I serve is to deliver Meals on Wheels to people who are shut-in. I started that during the pandemic, and I've done it for more than 4 years now, every week. And it's just, sometimes I'm the only person that the shut-ins see every day, and so nice to bring them a gift of food and say hello. And then I, like Jean, I'm a big reader. I've been co-chair of our church Orange Coast book group, fiction book group, for lots of years, and I savor life by reading fiction. I think Jean does too. She and I used to borrow books back and forth. Anyway, and I too just really, really enjoy life. Try to keep a happy balance between serving and savoring, put it that way. So thanks for letting me join you today.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing. And we're coming to you, Noreen. You're muted.
Okay. I'm savoring. This is a beautiful natural environment in Nicaragua. That always lights my fire. I savor nature. It's very gratifying. Also, I'm painting now, and that's great. And I'm making more of a social effort here in Granada because it's a smaller fish bowl and people are really available. So that's kind of cool. We're going to Managua tomorrow for a movie event, and all that's really cool. In terms of serving, you all know I used to spend a lot of time helping the Missionaries of Charity here. It was a wonderful thing we were able to do. Those sisters, the nuns of Mother Teresa, had a soup kitchen, sorry, the kitchen. They took care of children after school and a daycare, and they housed girls who were from abuse situations, girls from all over Nicaragua, and they've had to leave the country, so they're no longer here. And it's like I was a little sour, like, okay, I'm just going to sit home. But I find that I've been doing stuff on a smaller scale, and it's just the same. There's a couple families that hang out at the Central Park here selling little things, boats and stuff like that. And on Monday, we took a boat out on the little lake, around the little islands here. These kids, this guy said he'd lived in Grenada for 40 years and never been on the lake. So it was very gratifying. There were about 6 little kids that were excited. They're monkeys and birds. And so on a smaller scale, it's just fine. Maybe that's what I do in the golden years. It's gratifying and I'm savoring it.
Good.
Thank everybody for sharing their insights and their experiences with both savoring and serving. And then Reverend Tom takes us into the next chapter, summation, getting to the essentials. And he opens it up with a quote from Henry David Thoreau: simplify, simplify, simplify.
See life as it is.
And it's interesting because one of the shows that I watch on TV is The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And in the last season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, her father, he's a professor in New York City at one of the Ivy schools, I think Columbia. And he's at dinner with his professor colleagues, and they're all nearing retirement. And one of his colleagues talks about how him and his wife have curated this beautiful living space with all of these little treasures that they found from all over their journeys in the world, and how it's perfect and how he loves it. And he has a meeting with his kids, and they don't want any of it. They don't care anything about it. And he says that his life was pointless because everything that he cared about, they didn't care about. And one of the things that Reverend Tom talks about is how we have to go through and to leave all of our stuff, all of our belongings and everything uncurated, unstreamlined, and unsifted through is actually not a gift at all. So one of the things he points out is that he rid himself of 80% of his books, 60% of his files, and 40% of his professional collectibles upon his retirement. And it was just a paring down. And he also talks about in the first half of the chapter that the same paring down is essential in our activities to get to the essentials. And then in the second half of the chapter, he does an exploration and an emphasis on an instrument called an ethical will. And the ethical will is a communication that's sent down from an elder to the next generations. And it's not a life story. It's not everything that you're about. It's the essentials. It's your essential beliefs. And he points out that this is something that comes from the Jewish tradition and dates all the way back to the Torah, when the elder would give the wishes and the blessings to the next generation. And I didn't know this because I haven't read all of Reverend Tom's books, but his very first book was actually an ethical will that he wrote to his children, who were all living at home at the time that he wrote that in 1987. And it was entitled Generation to Generation, Passing Along the Good Life to Your Children. And then what he does for us in the last pages of chapter 7 is he summarizes that ethical will into 3 pages. And it's the essentials of what he thinks are important for his children, Chris, Jennifer, Russ, and Aaron. And it also applies to his grandchildren and all of their children as well. And I just thought this was interesting. He closes out the chapters with saying, as a kid, he had 3 goals. He wanted to hit like Ted Williams, play the trumpet like Harry James, who I don't know who that is, and write like Ernest Hemingway. So I'm showing my youth and my age. And he says, sure enough, after years of hard work and sacrifice, he can hit like Harry James, play the trumpet like Ernest Hemingway, and write like Ted Williams. And I thought that was just a funny depiction of how life often turns out. Although I think he might write a little more like Ernest Hemingway than he's giving himself credit for with those 24 books. So I open this question up, and we'll go to the sanctuary first if there's any thoughts on it. So many of us are in the home stretch. I'm in the home stretch of my work life, and I too am trying to simplify and find the essentials and find what's most important, especially since my time has been challenged with the requirements of Starr King and pursuing my Master of Divinity. So going back to the sanctuary, what is it that you've done in that Ernest Hemingway quote of simplify, 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 either in your space or in your behaviors? What do you have for us? Anyone in the sanctuary?
Oh, we haven't simplified. What is that?
My spotlight will not replace. Why not? Did we lose the sanctuary?
It's back.
Don, we're having Wi-Fi from the sanctuary, so you might want to start.
I see we're having problems with Wi-Fi in the sanctuary. So we'll go to the people on Zoom. Give us some examples or some insights into how you simplify, simplify, simplify. Anyone have something they can share? Carolyn, what do you have? Going from Laguna Woods up north, how did you?
That's exactly right. When you are paying to move your things and paying to store them for 2 months before you can put them in, and it's a lot of money. Every single box costs something. So you know, there are times when I open a cupboard and I say, oh, darn, why did I give that away? But for the most part, I'm glad I did. And yeah, so I'm really pleased that when I do go, it'll be easy for my son to clean out my place. And I think of him because I know he doesn't want any of it. But, you know, does anybody want any stuffed parrots?
Stuffed parrots, free stuffed parrots. Anybody else?
They can't be sold because they're what?
Carolina.
Carolina parakeets, and they no longer exist. So they can't be sold. And I've tried to find a museum to take them. I can't find a museum. And so here they sit, and I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but they're beautiful stuffed parrots, parakeets, Carolina parakeets, under glass from 1898.
Maybe an Audubon house.
I thought it meant stuffed with cotton.
An Audubon house, that's a good idea.
In Sacramento.
Oh, good idea. Yeah, I'm glad I brought that up. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Don, we're reconnected now here. Well, I think so.
Awesome. So let's go back. Let's go back to the sanctuary. What do you have in the sanctuary? Any thoughts on simplify, simplify, simplify?
Nobody's simplifying.
Nobody's simplifying in the sanctuary.
Linda.
Oh, Candy.
Well,
So
Say anything.
I thought Tom was very convincing, and he has convinced me psychologically, and I'm ready to simplify. Now it's just a matter of being lazy and putting it off. So it's a while before I get around to it, but psychologically, I think that in and of itself.
It's hard.
Well, one of the things I had to do, I really related when he said he got rid of 90% of his books, because about 10 years ago, I probably had about 3,000 books, and I was told you can keep 100. And boy, it was a really challenging decision when we got to around 200, 150. The choice was really challenging. But the cool thing is, it was painful, but all the books that I got rid of, this is my Kindle in its case, but they're all been replaced digitally in my Kindle. So now I have thousands and thousands of books in this one little space. And I've moved 3 or 4 times since I had to pare down those books. And when I tell you that it's such a blessing not to have 50 boxes of books and having to move 50 boxes of books with a dolly even, it's quite a challenge. One day in the sanctuary, they said, Don, the muscles, those 50 boxes of books are a real challenge to even the muscles. So that's been one of my experiences. And then I also had the experience of my great aunt. We had to clear out her house after she passed, and it was a laborious and intensive thing because she hadn't done any of that simplifying, and I don't think she would qualify as a hoarder, but she was real close. And so it was a lot of work for those of us that were left behind to sort through. And what I noticed is that impatience crept in, and there wasn't a lot of discernment. It was just a lot of movement. Stuff was just having to be moved and not actually sorted through. So what was lost in that haste, I don't know. And that's one of the things that I think Reverend Tom is encouraging us to do, is to be very mindful, because one of the things that's the equalizer for all of us is our time. And so the essentials of what are we going to do with our time and how are we going to spend that time. And he encourages us to do it in places of meditation, in our service and things that are generative, as Dr. Ross was talking about, singing in the last chapters. He talked about singing and us being an instrument of our own creation, and all of the arts, whether it be painting or making jewelry, sculpting, so on and so forth. And so I want to share, open the space back up to everyone, and we'll start with those in the building. As we move into this final thing, is there anything that you feel that you're going to be doing differently in the next couple of weeks, in the next couple of months, because of this interaction with Reverend Tom's material? And I'll start it off, and I'll tell you one of the things that he's encouraged me, as Oakley said, is to simplify, because I have so many clothes and it's impossible for me to wear. I have probably long sleeve dress shirts. I probably have 50 long sleeve dress shirts, and there's 5 days in a work week, and I don't wear them on the weekend. So I am going to do the same thing I did with my books, with my clothes, and seek to simplify my wardrobe collection. What is the collective out there taking away from Reverend Tom at this point? As we're almost done the book, we have 2 more chapters to go, so we're 3/4 of the way through. What are your takeaways as we're moving into the close? Anyone in the building?
Just one thing I wanted to say, Don, and that is I wanted to say thank you for doing a wonderful job of leading the book discussion group, and I really enjoyed this book.
Well, I take it and I say you're welcome. And I want to thank Pam and Rachel and Noreen, because this is really their idea. They came up with the Summer Up program last year of reading a book for the summer when everybody's on vacation. So this was their idea. I'm pleased to carry it out. I see your hand, Ross.
Yeah, am I muted?
Nope.
Okay, well, I'll just say my father who died at age 91, about 10, 12 years ago now. But he once told me, he looked around where I was in college, or after that, I was through college anyway. He came to where I was living one time. I think it was here in Victorville. And he looked around and he said, Ross, he says, your goal in life is not to be a library. We all have our love of books and our need to be insightful and smart and exploring, and yet somehow we should not be libraries. Now, I just say that I have not yet simplified to the degree I need to, and we know that as we age, we naturally simplify because we simply don't have the energy to keep up with the complexity and the largeness of our lives that we had before. And so, we get hung up in this hanging on to things that were appropriate for a different stage in our life. And I think that's part of coming to terms with our ends, which is his last book that I'm reading now. And that's part of, we have to grow our desires to match our abilities. And we're all stuck about 10 or 12 years ago in our capacities. And I'll just leave us with that. And I'm going to talk to Reverend Tom this week up at Divinity about these sorts of things and tell him thank you for his wonderful, wonderful insights and wisdom about all of this. He's an incredible
Please
man.
send tidings and thank you from the entire fellowship.
I will.
And me too. I guess I'm part of the fellowship. Back to the building.
Of course you are.
What are you guys thinking there?
So Dawn, I have just a few thoughts to add in as I have been reading the book. And today's the first day I've been part of the discussion. So thank you for letting me miss the first two discussions and join in on the last one. But one of the things I've been thinking about is how Reverend Tom is leading me to think about things like, balancing serving and savoring, and certainly simplify. But I think in writing this book, he's not only speaking to individuals about what you might do, but he's sort of laying a groundwork for how we can talk with each other and how we can talk with the other people in our lives about these topics that are sometimes pretty challenging. In my own family, I would say the simplify part is hard because you're not only simplifying your life, but you have a life that's entwined with other people's and you have different ways of approaching things. And so one of the things I've been appreciating is just the way he's laid out a model for having these types of challenging discussions with our life partners or our other family members. And so Ross and Annie, I'm thrilled you're going to be seeing Reverend Tom this week. Send him our love for sure. And that piece of it in particular, I'm just so grateful to him for, and then also for this discussion group.
Any final thoughts from the building? Going once.
I think we do. I think Linda has a final thought for us.
The smart hat is moving.
Smart hat's coming forward.
Smart hat is here. Oh,
Take it, Linda.
From Laguna Beach to Laguna Woods when I found out I had Parkinson's. And so simplifying has become our standardized way of life. I share with Dawn the love of clothes and of books with Oakley. And what I've done is I have a friend who is my size who's going to come in and use my clothes when I die. And I have a new book called I'm Dead, Now What, which I'm filling out for my kids, which gives my passwords, the ones I remember, and and how to access
So sweet.
etc. And make sure I'm dead before you cremate me, please. Directions like that. And I'm reading Tom's second book, the one about death. And Oakley and I bought that after he spoke here at the church to us. And that's also a lead in from this book, which is great. So thank you very much. That's it.
Well, thank you all for joining in and being a part of our discussion today. And now I'm going to admit to my first senior moment at the tender age of 49. I skipped our joys and sorrows earlier in the service, and it's such an important part. So it is an important thing because our joys are magnified and our sorrows are lessened. So I am going to pause the recording. I'm going to try to pause the recording. I have lost all control here. I don't know if one of the people in the building can pause. Can you pause the recording, Dara?
Yeah. Dara's pausing it, Dawn.
We cannot hear Carolyn yet.
Hello.
There we go.
Yay.
Sing together, Love Will Guide Us. And I assume the lyrics going to be on screen. Stand if you are so comfortable.
Will guide us.
Love will guide us, peace is trying us, hope inside us, we'll lead the way on the road from Crete to Giffey. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace is trying us, hope inside us, we'll lead the way on the road from Crete to Giffey. Love will guide us through the hard night.
Thank you so much, Carol. And now I invite Dara to come up, if she will, and extinguish our chalice in the building. If you lit one at home, I invite you to extinguish the chalice at home. Our chalice extinguishing, Be True, Be Well, Be Loving by Cynthia Landrum. We leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection, our concerns, our care for one another. Our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues. Until we are together again, friends, be strong, be well, be true, be loving. And now, if you will, join in a circle in the building and hold hands, open your voices, and we're going to sing our closing song, Let There Be Peace on Earth. Carol, take it away.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, every son was meant to be. With earth as our mother, we are family. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solid ground. To take each moment, live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, let it begin with me. Have a lovely day.